I'm here. I'm in. Jack?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm in. Oh, that.
Frank, are you on?
Hello, Jack. This is Legislator Lee. Am I on?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, thank you.
The December 10th, 2020 special meeting of the Monroe County Legislature will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Alcoffer. Here. Mr. Alcoffer is here. Mr. Ansello.
Here.
Mr. Ansello is here. Ms. Barnhart.
Here, even though there was less than 15
Barnhart is
minutes
here. Mr. Baroff.
Here.
Mr. Baroff is here. Mr. Baines.
Here on 10 minutes' notice.
Baines is here. Ms. Boyce. Ms. Boyce.
Here.
Ms. Boyce is here. Mr. Brew.
Here.
Mr. Brew is here. President Carbone.
Here.
President Carbone is here. Mr. Colby.
Here.
Mr. Colby is here. Mr. Delahanty.
Here.
Mr. Delahanty is here. Mrs. DeFlorio. Mrs. DeFlorio, if you're participating by phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Mr. Dondorfer.
Here.
Mr. Dondorfer is here. Mr. Felder.
Here.
Mr. Felder is here. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Legislator DeFlorio here.
Legislator Floro is here, and Legislator Flagler Mitchell are both here. Ms. Hassman.
Here.
Ms. Hassman is here. Mr. Hebert.
Here.
Mr. Hebert is here. Mr. Chiafetlassi.
Here.
Mr. Chiafetlassi is here. Ms. Lamar.
Here.
Ms. Lamar is here. Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Lee is here. Mr. Mafucci.
Here.
Mr. Mafucci is here. Mr. Marinetti.
Here.
Mr. Marinetti is here. Mr. Morelli.
Here.
Mr. Morelli is here. Ms. Roman. Ms. Smith.
Here. Roman.
Smith is here. Ms. Taylor.
Here.
Taylor is here. Mr. Terp. Mr. Terp. If you're calling in from your phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Here.
Mr. Terp is here. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilt.
Here.
Mr. Wilt is here. Mr. Udelson.
Here.
Mr. Udelson is here. Ms. Roman. Roman
Here.
is absent. Oh, sorry.
No,
Ms.
she's
Roman
not
is here.
absent. I'm here.
Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox is absent.
We'll need to suspend the rules of the legislature for the purpose of prohibiting public in-person attendance in accordance with Executive Order 202.1, which was extended through January 1st, 2021 by Executive Order 202.79. You have a motion before you, which is moved by Legislator Brew and seconded by Legislator DeFlorio. This is a non-debatable motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 No. No.
No.
No.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Brew,
No.
on the motion to suspend the rules.
Roll call vote, please.
On the motion to suspend the rules.
Roll
Mr. Brew.
call vote,
call
please.
vote, please.
Roll call vote,
That's what we're
please.
doing. It's a roll
Roll
call
call
vote.
Roll
vote,
call
please.
vote and the motion
Roll
to
call.
suspend the rules.
Mr. Brew.
Yes.
Mr. Brew
Shame on
votes
you.
yes. Mr. Felder.
Shame on you.
Mr. Felder votes yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer.
While driving.
Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. Mr. Ansello.
Yes.
Mr. Ansello votes yes. Ms. Barnhart.
No.
Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baroff.
No.
Mr. Baroff votes no. Mr. Baines.
This meeting's not legal, no.
Mr. Baines votes no. Ms. Boyce.
Yes.
Ms. Boyce votes yes. Mr. Colby. Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Mr. Colby
Hear me
votes
yet?
yes. Mr. Delahanty.
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Ms. Hassman.
No.
Hassman votes no. Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Hebert votes yes. Mr. Chiafetlassi.
Yes.
Mr. Chiafetlassi votes yes. Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Ms. Lamar votes yes. Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Lee votes yes. Mr. Mafucci.
Absolutely not, no.
Mr. Mafucci votes no. Mr. Marinetti.
Yes.
Mr. Marinetti votes yes. Mr. Morelli.
No.
Mr. Morelli votes no. Ms. Roman.
safety and security of many of the legislators who are currently driving, as you can hear.
Smith.
No.
Ms. Roman votes no. Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Taylor votes yes. Mr. Terp.
Yes.
Mr. Terp votes yes. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox is absent. Mr. Wilt.
Yes.
Mr. Wilt votes yes. Mr. Udelson.
Shame on you, no.
Mr. Udelson votes no. President Carbone.
Yes.
20 to 8. President Carbone votes yes. 20 to 8. The rules are suspended.
Please join me in a moment of silent prayer. Please join Legislator Frank Alcoffer as he leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
To the
republic
for which it stands,
for which it
one
stands,
nation,
one
under
nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Legislator Alcoffer.
You're welcome.
I called this special meeting of the legislature pursuant to the authority vested in me as president of the Monroe County Legislature by section C2-9C1 and C4-4D of the county charter and section 545-5 of the rules of the legislature of the county of Monroe. This meeting has been closed to the public and all legislators are participating via teleconference in accordance with Executive Order 202.1 and 202.79. In keeping with this legislature's tradition of openness, the meeting is being live streamed on YouTube through the legislature's official channel. Everyone participating via video or teleconference will please mute their devices, except to obtain the floor or cast a vote. If seeking to obtain the floor, please simply state your name and wait for me to call on you before proceeding with your question or statement. The clerk will read the full title of each item to avoid any confusion as to which item is before the legislature. All votes will be held via voice vote unless a roll call is requested. We will now hold a public forum. Mr. Clerk.
No written email comments were sent for this public forum. That concludes the public forum.
We will now proceed with consideration of motions, resolutions, and notices. Before reading the first item on the agenda, I ask that the clerk of the legislature read section C4-4D of the Monroe County Charter that governs the process we are undertaking.
Upon timely receipt by the clerk of the legislature from the county executive of a budget with a statement of changed items to which he or she objects with the reasons for the objections, the clerk shall forthwith give notice to all legislators of a special meeting of the legislature to be held within 48 hours after receipt by the clerk of such budget and statement of objections to reconsider the changes objected to. Upon convening such meeting, the county legislature shall enter the county executive's objections upon its journal and proceed to reconsider each of the changes so objected to. Only one vote shall be taken on each such item to be reconsidered. If upon each such reconsideration, 3/5 of the whole number of the county legislators vote to approve such changes or any of them, the budget with any such changes so approved, together with any such changes not so objected to by the county executive, shall be deemed to have been adopted. If the county legislature fails to meet or fails to reconsider the changed items objected to by the county executive within 48 hours after receipt by the clerk of the legislature of the budget and statement of objections from the county executive, the budget as submitted by the county executive with the changes made by the legislature which have not been objected to by the county executive shall be deemed to have been adopted. All actions to be performed within a 48-hour period shall be performed within 48 hours, regardless of whether the 48-hour period expires on a Saturday, Sunday, or holiday. Item number 1, referral 20-0336, providing that the amendment, motion number 123 of 2020, made to the 2021 Monroe County budget that was objected to by the county executive be reconsidered and approved.
Move it, Mr. President.
Moved by Legislator Brew, seconded by Legislator DeFlorio. This is a motion to reconsider and approve the objected amendment. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Legislator, this is Mr. President, this is Legislator Brew.
Legislator Brew, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to speak briefly once again about the importance of this amendment. We've all witnessed the events and circumstances of the past year. Things that no one could have predicted were coming our way. From additional funds for a global pandemic that has taken the lives of hundreds of our fellow neighbors, to increase resources to provide wraparound mental health services coupled with law enforcement, as demonstrated in the response to the Daniel Prude case, it is crucial that we are equipped with the necessary resources to help our community, whatever comes our way. I doubt anyone who have been through this last year would disagree with the fact that we have dealt with a year of uncertainty, tragedy, and ever-evolving events. We have proven with the actions and not just words that this honorable body has stood ready to respond, being creative and using our limited resources to better help our entire community. The 2021 budget must reflect what we have learned this year and represent our intention to best equip ourselves if and when the unexpected occurs, as it did so often this year. From public health to community equity to financial stability, these additional funds for the Community Contingency Fund will be crucial in ensuring Monroe County stands ready and able to adapt and respond to anything that comes our way. Anyone calling this a slush fund or insinuating that this has anything to do with something other than helping the members of our community is simply taking a page from their political handbooks to spin this topic into something that they can oppose. To be frank, if any of the members of this honorable body chooses to vote against approving this amendment, I am confident they will come to regret their decision. I ask and hope the public will keep their eyes on this community fund and its future usage, because they will be able to see all the things that we will allow us to achieve. Each one of us in this county legislature, 1 out of 29 members, elected our respective districts to represent our constituencies. We have taken an oath and been given a duty and commitment to serve these residents and represent their needs. Without access to adequate resources, we advocate our duty and oath to each of our respective villages, towns, and parts of the county. This honorable body is a co-equal branch of government, and we have proven that we're up to the challenge of governing through unforeseen circumstances and obstacles. Going forward, the legislature will continue to perform its foundational role of helping this community respond to unanticipated events and needs within our community. That is why I have stated repeatedly, these funds are open and available to any legislator who puts forth an idea that can earn support from a majority of the legislator, as well as a final signature from the county executive. While I'm here today talking about all the great things we will do with these funds, I am recognized that I'm limited to the present. As Adam Bello, County Executive Bello, and I discussed last week when we were talking about and when we had an agreement with this, the county executive did in fact cite the possibility of having to add additional contact tracers or medical staff, of which we wholeheartedly agreed that would be universal support for those items as they came forward. I'm confident that when I'm here in 2021 and have the benefit of reflection, that I will be talking about all the positive things that we have done with these funds to strengthen Monroe County. Mr. President, I am proud to support the override of this county executive's veto of this amendment, as I know that the creation of this community fund will benefit so many of our neighbors throughout Monroe County. Thank you.
Legislator
Thank
Hebert.
you, Legislator Rule. Any other further discussion?
Legislator Hebert.
Hebert. Yeah, Legislator Hebert, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to explain my vote. Let me start by stating I truly believe the Community Contingency Fund is a good idea. It's also not news to anyone in this body or the administration that when this fund is established, I intend to seek funds to support our veterans. There are two causes there that have been that need support. First is a Veterans Service Agency service officer to work on the premises of the Veterans Outreach Center. I have been told by the director of the Veterans Outreach Center, the former VSA director here in Monroe County, that they are in desperate need of help to work with veterans that show up at the better known VOC with Veterans Administration claims that are very complex. And this is where our VSA, our Veteran Service Agency run by the county, is truly expert. They have a proven track record of success. A lot of our vets, unfortunately, show up at the VOC, don't go to the VSA, and therefore don't get the funds that they should be and the support that they should be getting from the Veterans Administration. By putting a Veterans Service Agency officer on site, we can alleviate that problem, and we can grow the value to our veterans throughout Monroe County that deserve support of the Veterans Administration. The second is a trial of a program that is proven to reduce veteran suicide, help them deal with PTSD and other problems at post-military careers. It's called ecotherapy. It is an outdoor program run in cohorts of 10 to 12 members. They meet a minimum of twice a week for 3 hours per session, and that continues for at least 12 weeks. This program and programs like it have proven success in Europe and in 4 states on our West Coast. The cost of this program is about $125,000 to run a pilot. I also want to point out that this program could be used for others outside of the veteran community that face similar sorts of issues. And upon the success of the pilot, I am hopeful that the administration will find it wise to include it in the 2022 budget and perhaps to fund it for additional cohorts this year. I find it particularly troubling that anybody would refer to this as a slush fund. This program was known to the administration, this program being the ecotherapy program, yet they chose not to include it in the proposed budget. And I realize it was a difficult budget year. There's no question about that. I've spoken to members of all 3 caucuses, and I want to be clear, not everyone in all 3 caucuses, but I spoke to members in all 3 caucuses and have received unwavering support for both of these uses of funds from the Community Contingency Fund. I personally cannot, as a retired Navy officer, and will not vote against a fund that will help veterans and others in our community who need and deserve our unanimous help and support. Therefore, I will be voting to override this veto. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Legislator Baines.
Go ahead, Legislator Baines.
I don't have the benefit of any notice of this meeting, so I won't be reading my remarks as other legislators who were aware of the meeting being called. But I'm thankful for this opportunity, Mr. President, to share some thoughts. First, Legislator Hebert quite properly called me out the other day because I wasn't careful with my language when I was discussing the veterans issue, and I want to apologize to him. I was trying to make the point that we should be supporting veterans in a way that's consistent and that never abandons them as they never abandoned us. And I do believe that Legislator Hebert, when he presented his proposal as the kind of poster program for this fund, was a wise choice. I think his proposal represents the criterion that Majority Leader Bruce shared. And if the criterion that Majority Leader Bruce shared yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever we met, were what everybody agreed to, then I think that this particular motion by this honorable body, this action, would have more integrity. Because Majority Leader Bruce said that the items that would come before this honorable body would benefit the entire community. And as Legislator Hebert has made clear, when he's talking about veterans, they come from all over our community and really all over our country. They move here and they represent all in the community. There's not a particular silo that they're in. They represent all of America. However, in the discussion, and I would urge people who want to drill down into the wisdom of this, if you look at the tape of our meeting the other day, it was clear that individual legislators have interpreted this as an opportunity to hand out cash in their districts. They said it. They said it on tape. So, you know, I hope I regret my no vote, because I hope that Legislator Brew is correct, and that the majority, which has never demonstrated in my short tenure that they're very interested in the minority's views, that the majority truly does respect all the proposals that come forward. And I look forward to the coming year, because I know this is going to get overridden, to see whether or not indeed that Tom Baines, a legislator from District 18, is treated in the same way as legislators who wield power in this honorable body. I will be voting no for the very reasons I set forth. Thank you, Mr. President.
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Thank you, Legislator Baines.
President,
Who's that?
Legislator Felder.
Go ahead, Legislator Felder. You have the floor.
I want to start by taking exception to the idea that somehow people said this is a way for us to hand out money in our districts. What was said by Legislator Flackley and co-signed by me was that we know better what the needs are in our districts than other people do. The idea that we're just looking for money to just throw around and dump in our communities. Well, just for the record, we represent two of the poorest communities in the county. But that's beside the point. Their needs. Their community organizations have been asking for money for years, and the county has not received them. Baden Street and the Community Place and the Charles Settlement House have a program trying to create a peer support program for people with drug addictions and chronic health issues, trying to get some money from the county for that. And it will be rebuffed. You have arts organizations, Rochester Contemporary Arts Center, and others who have been asking for money and have been rebuffed. We have a bad system for funding the arts in this county. So there are needs. This is being done with an eye towards helping to meet those needs. It is not an idea to just dump money into people's communities. And what I hear, there were certain legislators who actually asked for member items to have the money divided up 29 ways, and each legislator get a certain amount of money to disperse in their neighborhoods, in their districts. We said no to that, because we want to make sure that this is something that, if it's being done, is something that can be demonstrated to the entire legislature that it's necessary. So all these mischaracterizations of what this is, and for the county executive to go on television and claim that we strong-armed them into the meeting. I was in the meeting with Legislator Brew, Legislator Flackley Mitchell, and Legislator President Carbone. He was meeting with the leaders of the 3 caucuses in his office, and Adam Bello called and wanted to meet. He came upstairs and he asked the question. He put it on the table, and we told him what would be acceptable. And then his administration went out and found the money. That referral that you said the other night, a lot of you said the night, the first time you saw the other night, they put it together. I don't know whether he discussed it with you or not before he did it, but they put that together. And so what you saw the other night was not put together by anybody in the legislature. Those funds were found. Those budget lines were identified by the administration and given to us to put into the referral, and that's what we voted on the other night. So this idea that we strong armed them, somebody strong armed them backed them into a corner, strong armed them into going along with something is just completely false. He wanted a unanimous budget. He asked, how does he get a unanimous budget? He was told what was necessary, and he agreed to it. If he had said no, we were just going through the normal process of the budget, and we just started amending this and that or whatever, that would have been a normal budget process. But because of what he wanted, he agreed to this. So I will be voting for this wholeheartedly. And I would appreciate if people stop characterizing the intentions of people that you don't know. Thank you.
Well
said. Well said. Legislator Barnhart?
Thank you. The choice before us is not funding veterans or not funding veterans. The choice is not helping the community or not helping the community. The issue here is similar to the issue we saw in Albany for many years regarding what Legislator Felder just said, member items, the partisan allocation of funds for favored legislators. No, that hasn't happened yet because we are just creating this fund today. But it is set up to fall into this trap. Slush funds, yes, I'm going to keep using that term, are insidious because we all love veterans, we all love neighborhood groups, and we all love our districts. But doling out funds this way confers a status in an election year upon legislators that they would not otherwise have. The power to give is a power that helps the giver, not just the recipient. And it became very clear to me in the discussion that this was going to be just like the old Albany member items. And they're very hard to oppose because they go to things we like. But we can fund these things in an equitable way that doesn't play favorites with legislators and their favorite things. The majority leader implied that those of us who vote no would regret it. Well, actually, he said that, he didn't imply it. Well, I hope that's not a threat to hurt some legislators and their constituents and reward others. I certainly hope I regret my vote for the right reasons. The county executive was strong-armed. He's facing a supermajority of Republicans and Democrats who have 20 votes. He did the best he could to make this request, as it is, the best thing it could possibly be without harming his budget proposal. Now, I am very committed to working in a cross-partisan manner on this fund because it is about to be a reality. And I do hope that my prediction does not come true. Thank you.
Can I say something? Let me respond to that.
Yes, go ahead, Legislator Felder.
I just said, explain in word for word what happened in the meeting. And Legislator Barner comes behind me and says that he was strong on. He was not strong on. And the idea that this is going to be a partisan handout when it was bipartisan legislation, and we said it's available to every legislator to submit proposals. I understand when you want to you just want to have a narrative because it suits your brand and it suits your political agenda and a narrative you want to spin. But when you keep flying in the face of what's in paper, what's written on paper, what people are saying it is, just to try to score some political points, this is the height of political cynicism. You made it very clear what this is. We point out the kind of programs we talk about trying to fund and support. And we're still hearing this rhetoric.
Legislator Mafucci.
Are you through, Legislator Felder?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Legislator Mafucci, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. If what we are doing tonight with less than 15 minutes to consider is for the good of the community, we would have been given time for all to prepare and provide input. This is about hoping no one's paying attention while people pursue their political interests. It's all about power. And frankly, this honorable body should be ashamed of itself. This is a dark moment for Monroe County government, and I will not support the override of either amendment. As for veterans, as the son of a combat veteran and the father of an Afghan war combat veteran, I would be more than happy to discuss helping veterans in a more thoughtful way. Thank you.
Thank you, Legislator Mafucci. Any further discussion?
Yes,
Thank you.
Mr. President. Legislator Barrow.
Oh, I'm sorry, Legislator Barrow. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, so first I have to apologize if I was moving around too much and distracting people. I was making dinner for the kids. And to be frank, that was what had to be done. I just wanted to respond.
What did you make?
Actually, chicken, broccoli, and barbecue potatoes. It's being made at the moment. It's not done yet.
Sounds delicious.
I'm hoping. So in regards to Legislator Hebert, I look forward to voting for his, what I don't know what it's going to be called, a referral, request, a grant, whatever it is, whatever the language turns out to be on this fund. I look forward to voting for it. I would have more looked forward for voting for referral to the administration through the normal process of moderating or adjusting the budget, which we can do at any time. This budget item, this fund is not necessary. At any point in time, we can simply put in a referral to the administration, pass it by the majority, and identify funding sources for it, which, by the way, the administration did for us. This fund is not necessary. It's merely a convenient ploy. It can be done for good, such as the case of what Legislator Hebert wants to do, and it can be done for things that are less good. We don't know. We're not saying what it is. We're just saying whatever we think is best. And to say that every legislator has the opportunity to get the favor or the support of the majority and the president rings hollow to me. I've been in this body for 10 years now, and the efforts to get anything through as a minority person on the in the legislature is overwhelming. And it's that way on purpose. That's not changing. And in fact, if anything, it's getting worse. So I will be voting against this referral, this amendment. And then I suspect if Legislator Brewer is true to his word and the items that come forth are actually worthwhile, I'll be voting for those. But if not, sir, I will not. But that's something how we're supposed to do. That's how we normally operate. This contingency fund bloated up to $22.5 million from this $100,000 intent of doing things like taking us away from paperwork to electronic work. That was the purpose of this fund, sir. Things that we did not anticipate for the running of this legislature. That was the purpose. We've changed the purpose now, or at least we will after this override. And the fact is, you know, the idea that this could be split into 29 ways, everyone knows that's ludicrous. It's not going to happen like that. Legislator Hebert's two proposals will pass. No question. And the funds he's talking about, that's about 2 to 3 29ths of what is here. Already, someone's pet project isn't going to make it. I'm okay with that. I don't think we should do this like this. I think we should be putting forth referrals through the body with a vote to the administration. We should not be doing it like this. Why? Just for a soundbite. And that's not worth it. So I'll be voting against it. I apologize again for moving around and being in the kitchen, but there was no way around it. I'm not going to complain about the late notice, but I'm just going to say this is one of the ramifications of it. People are in their lives. Thank you.
Legislator Brock, have you brought any legislation to the legislature that hasn't come to the floor this year?
No, I have not, sir.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome.
Anyone else?
Mr. President?
Anyone else?
Mr. President, Legislator
Mr.
Lee.
President?
Legislator Lee, I think Legislator Lamar was a little bit ahead of you. Go ahead, Legislator Lamar.
I just want to take the time out to thank Josh for his thoughtful words. Something you said really caught my attention, and you mentioned you know how it feels now to be a minority. And hopefully with that feeling, you also understand how minority communities don't always get what they need to survive. So I just wanted to thank you for pointing that out, and hopefully you'll continue to think in that manner of how it feels to be a minority and have people who have the power to aid you, how they block you from doing that. Thank you.
Can I respond?
Thank you. Yes, Legislator Brock, you'd like to respond?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
Legislator Lamar. Actually, thank you for your comments. I don't claim to know what it's like to live as a minority member of our community. Don't misunderstand me. I claim to know what it's like to be a minority member of the legislative body. But to the extent of being in that power differential, yes, ma'am, I would agree. Yes, it's something that we also keep in mind. And it's not something I just learned. I assure you, I learned this from day one when I got into the legislature. I've been aware of this for a long period of time. But yes, I take your point that in fact, different communities have different resources and some are blocked or disempowered by others. And that does happen, yes. But I don't claim to have lived that experience. I have not.
Thank you. Legislator Lee?
Yes, thank you. I will be voting for this budget for the same reason I voted for it the first time. And I am proud to be a part of this legislature, to see that we can conduct the people business in a bipartisan manner. I'm probably been one of the longest legislators on this body over the years, and it's always been one of our goals to be able to do things and put the people business first. And so I commend this body and able to be able to do that. But I'm appalled when someone else tells you that you don't know what's going on in your community when we have seniors who are in desperate need for various service and youth who are looking for us to be the mentors and the leaderships and giving them opportunities that they don't have. And so at the end of the day, I have no business going in someone else's district and trying to tell them what their needs are. And I'm appalled when someone tries to tell me about what's going on in my community. So at the end of the day, we had a tape that you can go back and look at, and we voted 29-0. All of a sudden, we're coming back here again, and there's going to be a dissenting vote, and I guarantee you of 9, and then let that speak for itself. It's on the record.
Thank you, Legislator Lee.
Legislator Roman?
Legislator Roman, you have the floor.
So when asked if these dollars would be used for sustainable change, the answer was no. The problem with a fund like this is that it does not have a process, nor does it have a means for oversight and distribute and being able to be distributed. I absolutely commend the opportunity for all of us to have a more active role in ensuring that our communities are receiving the services that they need. But I'm extremely worried of this legislative body, of which last night voted on 2 illegal, one an amendment, and the other, the terms of legislators, 2 potentially legal pieces of legislation and the amendment, as well as provided us with about 10 minutes to make choices today. So I'm extremely wary of the spirit behind this community contingency fund that did not involve a discussion of the 29 members of this legislative body. There's no sense of community there. Because of that, I'm voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'd like to thank you all for shuffling your schedules to accommodate this special meeting of the Monroe County Legislature. As we're all aware, after the unanimous passage of the County Executive Bellow's 2021 budget on Tuesday night, 29-0, the County Executive declined to sign his budget and has since announced his veto of an amendment passed with bipartisan support that will create a community contingency fund. Here are the facts around the creation of this community contingency fund. During a meeting with Majority Leader Brew and me last week, County Executive Bellow outlined his insistence of a unanimously passed budget. Over the course of this meeting, we discussed the budget priorities of both the administration and county legislature and came to an agreement that would maximize support to members of our Monroe County community. Issues like mental wellness, public health, and veteran services, including the ecotherapy program Legislator Hebert just spoke of, have the possibility of being addressed through this funding. It is for these reasons that we will be voting to override Adam Bellow's veto of the amendment, creating the Community Contingency Fund, once again something that he agreed to and his administration helped draft. We are happy to be putting our constituents and our community over the partisan politics of the county executive's office. With that, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brew?
Yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Felder?
Yes.
Mr. Felder votes yes. Mr. Feigler Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Feigler Mitchell votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. Mr. Ansello?
Yes.
Mr. Ansello votes yes. Ms. Barnhart?
No.
Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baroth?
No.
Mr. Baroth votes no. Mr. Baines?
No.
Mr. Baines votes no. Ms. Boyce?
Yes.
Ms. Boyce votes yes. Mr. Colby?
Yes.
Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Delahanty?
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mrs. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Ms. Hassman.
No.
Ms. Hassman votes no. Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Hebert votes yes. Mr. Keofat-Lassie.
Yes.
Mr. Keofat-Lassie votes yes. Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Ms. Lamar votes yes. Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Lee votes yes. Mr. Mafucci.
You're muted, Legislator Mafucci.
No.
Mr. Mafucci votes no. Mr. Marionetti.
Yes.
Mr. Marionetti votes yes. Mr. Morelli.
No.
Mr. Morelli votes no. Ms. Roman.
No.
Ms. Roman votes no. Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor votes yes. Mr. Terp.
Yes.
Mr. Terp votes yes. Mr. Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox is absent. Mr. Wilt.
Yes.
Mr. Wilt votes yes. Mr. Udelson.
No.
Mr. Udelson votes no. President Carbone.
Yes.
President Carbone votes yes. Needing a 3/5 majority, the motion is hereby approved 20-8.
Next item, please.
Point of order,
Item number
Mr.
two.
President.
Who's that?
This is Legislator Morelli. Point of order. Would you please allow for the vote and the meeting to be open so that by the end of the evening, Mr. Wilcox can cast a vote?
Yeah, that's no problem.
We'll hold the meeting open.
We will hold the meeting open. Thank you,
Thank you, Mr.
Legislator
President.
Morelli, for bringing that up. Next item, please.
Item number 2, referral 20-0336, providing that the amendment, motion number 124 of 2020, made to the 2021 Monroe County budget that was objected to by the county executive be reconsidered and approved.
So move.
Thank you. Moved by Legislator Flagler Mitchell, seconded by Legislator Lamar. This is a motion to reconsider and approve the objected amendment. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Legislator Flagler Mitchell, the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to talk a little bit about this amendment and talk to the legislators that I know is going to vote no. This amendment came together to try to save jobs. Being an African-American male in a society that asks us to do more and for us to receive less, we always see ourselves going to get the degrees. We see ourselves working harder than the next person to ensure that whatever job we is given, we do it the best of our abilities. I am disappointed that in the Ways and Means Committee, the Democrats who normally would ask questions, especially when it comes to the BOE, have not caught this, have not asked any questions to the administration. It's like y'all don't even care that you have 2 African-American women who is getting ready to be cut out of a budget. It also concerns me that the budget that is presented is not actually from the commissioners themselves. Because it took one amendment like that to stop the county executive. 2 people stopped the county executive from signing a $1.2 billion budget and creating this controversy. To me, it must mean that that was his budget. Where it's unfortunate because the people who are sitting in there, one, have a degree in IT. The other have institutional knowledge. It's getting ready to become Christmas time. And now these individuals will have to relook at their budgets, try to make sure they can provide for their families. We don't know what their living conditions are. Combined, the both of them, they have 30 years combined with the county. And the way we reward black folks is by cutting them out of the budget and telling them, oh well, it is what it is. In a time of COVID, Ms. Fuji, I know your daughter is chief of staff. How would you feel if her position was cut? Would you vote for her? Would you create an amendment to try to save her job? That go for all of y'all.
Say that.
That go for all of y'all. Would y'all? And trust me, none of them is related to me, but they're African American females, and I know the struggle in our households. I know the struggles in our households. But see, because most of y'all, the ones who are gonna vote no, can't see it from your households. You don't care. Y'all don't care at all. So I put this amendment forth, and I'm asking everybody to vote for this amendment. No matter what you think, we're not talking about politics. We're talking about people everyday lives right here. We're talking about Christmas. We're talking about New Year's. We're talking about COVID. We're talking about black people. Most of y'all run around and say Black Lives Matter. We want to see what your vote going to be tonight. I told a bunch of them to watch this tonight and watch how y'all vote. I told them. And a lot of people is watching this. So we want to see how everybody vote. So, Mr. President, I am hoping that this is a roll call vote so that everybody can see the true colors of the party. And that it doesn't matter if you have a colored woman sitting at the helm of this. It's still not right to get rid of two people in the midst of COVID. It's still not right to put them and their family in the burden because y'all want to play political game and y'all want to play political gerrymander. It's not right. Okay? So I'm asking this honorable body to vote back in this amendment and send a message to everybody who want to do folks wrong just because they got the power to do it. That we as a legislature will not tolerate it. And we will stand on the side of the people. It has to be purpose, people. There got to be a purpose. There's no purpose to get rid of two people. Y'all know if the commissioners had an issue that they need more resources, they could have came to us. But the people in the Ways and Means on the Democrat side didn't even ask. I still is confused on why y'all didn't ask. 7 hours, and out of all that y'all asked, I didn't say, well, we see that there are what's going on. If they need extra resources, they could come to us. They do not have to fire two people in a time of COVID, where many of our people in my community, and they most likely is in my community, is struggling with uncertainty. So, Mr. President, I'm asking that y'all consider this amendment, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Legislator Flagler Mitchell.
Legislator Dondorfer.
Legislator Dondorfer, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, thank you to Legislator Flagler Mitchell for setting a good example by wearing a seatbelt there. I gotta admit, I am a bit torn on this item. I understand the importance of recognizing that there are judicial laws and how they govern the importance of these procedures. But to me, I think this is more of an issue of human decency. Prior to being amended, the budget included 2 hardworking and dedicated members of the Board of Election staff. For me, this is not about race. It's not about politics. It's about 2 county employees who face layoffs during a pandemic, during the holiday season, during any season for that matter. I have talked to people who work at the Board of Elections, and they have reiterated the fact that these 2 employees are very good employees. They're very solid people. They've reported to work during some of the most demanding times that we have faced as a community, as a country, during this election season and during a global pandemic. I'm not willing to support these employees being laid off. Therefore, at this point, I will be voting in favor of overriding the veto. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Legislator Dondorfer. Well said.
Mr. President?
President?
I think Legislator Lamar, was that you next?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I just want to explain my vote. So as I sit here today, I think about the many people on that side of the aisle who shouted Black Lives Matter and who today stand against allowing 2 Black women to keep their jobs. This isn't, I don't want the community to get it twisted. This is not a money issue. This is a principle issue. I'm doing this for 2 Black women who have served this county collectively for over 30 years. And the legislature is making an amendment to allow these women to keep their jobs during a pandemic. And the people who are blocking it are the ones who shouted Black Lives Matter. I'm disappointed in the county executive who marched the streets of Rochester with my community, like he cares. And now he has the chance to stand up to women who serve, stand up for women who served in this county in various capacities over the past 30 years. And he chose politics. I'm sad because it's the holiday season, a time for giving. And I pray that God has mercy on the souls of the ones who will be voting against this. The things that you all have done in 2020 to women of color in this community because of politics is shameful. But that's okay, because you don't have to answer to me, and you probably won't even have to answer to your constituents. But one day you will have to give a full account. Me, I'll be happy on Judgment Day to say that I stood for what was right. Thank you, Mr. President.
Oh, thank you, Legislator Lamar. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Legislator Keo Kamasi.
Legislator Tito Fatlasi, you have the floor.
I think I was before him.
Oh, I'll yield
I'm
the
sorry,
floor.
Legislator Roman, I didn't hear you. You can go right after him. Legislator Tito Fatlasi.
I just wanted to reiterate everything that Legislator Lamar and Legislator Flagler Mitchell said. Earlier this year, I was appointed to the Race Commission, and within the Race Commission, I was put on job creation. And through job creation, I made it sure to make job equity and job accessibility 2 major emphasis points on that subcommittee. I wouldn't feel comfortable voting in favor of taking away jobs and equity from 2 Black women. And with that, I just want to reiterate, I am voting yes, or my duties within the Race Commission would be all for nothing in a facade. Thank you.
Thank you. Legislator Roman, you have the floor. Sorry about that, Legislator Roman.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to put in a point of parliamentary inquiry. Do we as the legislative body have the authority to re-vote on this type of amendment as it stands? Do we have the authority to do this?
Yes.
Legally?
Per the charter that the part of the charter that I read, we have the right to vote on a amendment.
Okay, this amendment
Yes.
that micromanages the Board of Elections office in this
Yes.
way.
Yes.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Well, I want to make a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Legislator Roman. I thought you had a question.
Yeah, so I hear the sentiments of my colleagues, but what bothers me the most is that oftentimes half stories come before us and show up on the floor. The reality of my understanding is that cuts happened on both sides of the aisle. We are not having a conversation about what has happened fully within that particular office, or within multiple offices within the county. I get it. I believe me, I understand. As a woman who grew up in a single parent household, I understand. But we have to make sure we are sharing the full story. And part of that story is that raises are being disseminated and questioned and micromanaged. Quality of life is not being taken into account for some of the employees that are still there. So there are multiple layers to all of this. So for that reason, I will be voting to not. I'll be voting.
Can I respond?
Mr. President.
Who's that? It's hard to see on this Zoom. Who spoke up?
Legislator Felder.
Legislator Felder, was that you? Go ahead, Legislator Felder.
I want to peel back this onion a little bit more. When you look at what's going on here, look at the positions. Let's look at the IT position they're trying to recreate. They're removing it from being a position that requires a college degree and taking it down to one that doesn't. Here we are in the age of more information age, where elections are becoming more and more complex and more IT driven. Election security, information technology, information security is more and more important, and they're reducing the job down to remove somebody out of a position and create a position for IT that does not require a degree. That doesn't even make sense. It's not practical. One of the raises being given. One of the raises being given is being given to a woman who hasn't even been at work most of the year. You give it a $20,000 raise, somebody who hasn't been at work. There's a lot more work here than what the commissioner talked about when she spoke at the press conference earlier. There's a lot of retaliation, other things going on here, and it's being masked because they could not get the agreement of the Republican commissioner to remove these people. They chose to remove them out of the budget and use this cynical ploy of saying they're trying to restructure the office to do this. And there's no way in the world that I, as a man, black, white, whatever, am going to allow this to happen, knowing what I know about why this is going on. And also the county executive's role in this. How do you reward somebody who abandoned the office during the pandemic at the height of the most onerous primary we've ever had, and she's going to be rewarded with a $20,000 raise, and still is not at work? They're not telling you that, but for HIPAA reasons, we can't say the name of any stuff, but she's still not at work. And you want to reward her with a raise. We're supposed to reward somebody who abandoned the Board of Elections. It's been going all year long. What is she getting a raise for? What is she being promoted? Right. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And so if we want to have an honest discussion about what's really going on here, let's do that. But this idea that we just micromanage an office like we don't really know what's going on in the Democratic side of the Board of Elections is just ridiculous. This is a sham. This whole budget was put together as a sham, as a way to get rid of two people. One of the women worked here for 25 years, at least. The other one came over from another department, had a stellar record in another IT department in the county to work there. Cleaned up after the IT person who the county executive rewarded for his abandonment of the office during the same time period. The county executive rewarded him with a job. She came in and cleaned up the IT mess that was going on down there and got them through the election. And her reward is, oh, bye. We're going to dumb down the job and give it to somebody else. And we're supposed to sit here and go along with this. And any Democrat who goes along with this just proves what we've been saying about the Monroe County Democratic Party for years, including something going on since the new so-called leader took over. The same person is puppeteering and pulling the strings and got everybody else playing it on like little marionette strings and going along with this retaliation, this negativism, this racism within the Democratic Party. And I'm not going along with this. I'm voting to override this veto, and we'll see what happens after that.
Legislator Baines.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. President, I wanted to. She talked about the whole truth. When we look at the whole truth of what's going on here, yes, two white women is getting 5-step levels, and everybody else in the Board of Election, which is a lot of blacks and white and one Latino, everybody getting a 1- and 2-step level. Those folks who getting 1- and 2-step levels been there through the primaries and the general elections. The ones that are getting the highest raise are two white women. It is a privileged sharecropping mentality they have at the Board of Election. And and like I said, this can't be a budget that a Latina woman put together. It just can't be, because you can see the inequity in there. There is no, so Legislator Roman, I know you're new here, so I'm gonna have to educate you. The Board of Election and the county ledge deals with each other, not the administration. That is not the administration wheelhouse. We deal with the money. And yes, we talk about people getting cut all over the place.
Yes, exactly.
But people getting cut, people getting cut because funding is not there. The funding is here. So the whole story is they're really just cutting them because they're black. Because how do you deal with institutional knowledge, and how do you get rid of a person who have a degree in IT? I mean, come on now. To say I need an absentee person, you got people down there already. I want to create this position, all because they black. In the time and the pandemic, you say you understand, but you ain't acting like it because you playing fluff with your answer. If you understand, you will vote for this amendment. I mean, it just and if you're not going to vote for it, save your breath. Because if you're not going to vote for it, don't get up there. Oh, I want to say that I understand my colleagues. No.
Oh no,
because
Mr. President.
Racism is
Roman. You'll have a chance to rebut when he's.
Racism is racism. Okay, let's be real. Just because you're a woman of color, don't mean I won't call you out too. Don't get it twisted. Okay, racism is racism. You can flip what you want. If you understand, you'll vote for this amendment to send a statement. I yield the floor.
Okay, Legislator Roman.
Thank you. I do understand, and I understand that everyone.
Can't pay me to believe that.
I believe that everyone needs to receive equitable pay. If we pass this and override the veto, there will be people in the Board of Elections who will not receive quality of life pay. There are people we know within Monroe County who are not receiving the pay that they deserve. So we are choosing to continue to allow that to happen. So yes, I'm voting no, because sometimes everyone deserves a bump in pay.
Thank you. You should have kept that to yourself. Next.
Okay, Legislator Flagler Mitchell. Yeah, so we gave
Mr. President, to the administration.
Let's not interrupt Legislator Roman. We didn't let her interrupt you. Go ahead, okay. Legislator Roman. Are you done?
Thank you. I am done. Unfortunately, the reality is no matter what is said here, we all know how we're going to vote. The slander.
Let's go to a roll call vote.
The slander, the disrespect, and the unwillingness to listen is ridiculous. I look forward to voting.
Legislator
Legislator Flagler Mitchell, do you have a comment now if she's done?
Yeah, Mr. President, I mean, this is just a waste of time to hear sound bites for folks where they know where their vote is going to be at. You know, they want to fire 2 black women. Okay? They claim that if they don't fire them, people won't get raised. But the only ones really getting true raises, the 2 white ladies who are going to get 5 steps up above everybody else. Everybody else is going to get 1 and 2. Then you got some people in there that ain't going to get no raises. So this is our rhetoric talk. Can we go to a roll call vote?
Legislator
Baines. Let's go to a roll call vote.
I object. I'd like an opportunity to speak, please, Mr. President.
Okay, Legislator Baines.
People who want to shut down the discussion are the people doing all the talking. It's kind of ironic. First thing
you're
I'd like to...
Yeah, you're going to vote no anyway.
First, I didn't interrupt you.
A little decorum.
I didn't interrupt you.
Don't get mad.
I am.
But you made a comment directly towards him. So let's have a little decorum. Legislator Baines, you have the floor. Give your statement.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, I'd like to point out that Legislator Felder is on the Ways and Means Committee, and I'm not. And these issues could have been brought up by any Democrat on the Ways and Means Committee or any Republican. I'd also like to point out that some of the people who are so concerned about people becoming unemployed at Christmas are demanding that duly elected Board of Elections Commissioner Jackie Ortiz lose her job. And I'd like to further point out that
I still feel that way.
don't interrupt me.
Legislator Flagler
Don't
Mitchell,
interrupt me.
I'll give you the chance.
And then I'd like to further point out that the other night, I voted to close down discussion, not because I didn't want people to be heard on this issue, but I thought it was a humiliating embarrassment the way Jackie Ortiz, the election commissioner, was treated by this honorable body the other night. She was ambushed. And in fact, this honorable body overstepped its bounds. Are we going to next have a long discussion about Sheriff Baxter's employees? Are we going to micromanage all of the pay scales over in the Sheriff's Department? Some of my colleagues are saying, you know, I'm conflicted, I'm struggling with this, it's the time of year. Well, good government is good government 12 months a year. This is an overreach, and the law, and I might add, the law is very clear that the Board of Elections has the right, we only have the right under the law to set a budget amount, a pot of money. And the Board of Elections Commissioner, who is elected under the election law, and we were lectured tonight by a lot of people about their responsibility to those who voted for them, to those who elected them. Well, Jackie Ortiz and her colleague on the Republican side were elected. And she has the prerogative and authority to run her department. And I think that simply on the issue of legislative overreach, we are now micromanaging a department. I don't have the information about this. I've heard a lot of people yelling and screaming about this and that, et cetera. I don't have all that information. All I know is that we are definitely overreaching. And for that reason, I will be voting no on this matter. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Legislator Baines. Legislator Flagler Mitchell. I told Legislator Flagler Mitchell not to interrupt Legislator Baines, but I would give him the floor immediately after Legislator Baines was through.
That's fine, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. One, I'm not trying to cut anybody out, but he made a comment of that. I called for the election commissioner to lose her job. I told her she should resign. Let's make that clear. When it's blatant at what it is that you're doing, how can the Black community even trust that? So, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I didn't tell nobody to fire her. I said she should resign for the integrity of the office so that everybody can trust who we got in as the commissioner. Allow Natalie Shepherd to become the commissioner and go ahead and go about your business. That's where I'm at. So, he said that I told him that she could get fired. No, I told her she should resign. If y'all care about the party, why not resign? Let Natalie Shepherd take commissionership and let her appoint her deputy commissioner and let's move on. Okay? So, at the end of the day, I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you, Legislator.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm for equitable treatment of all employees. I'm also for a full discussion that allows us to vote and make decisions with all the facts. The Democratic members of the Ways and Means Committee were criticized for not bringing this up during the meeting. And our colleague said that he sat back to see what they would do and kind of anticipated what they would do. But wouldn't it have been better to raise those concerns to the members in advance? I wish the amendment had been provided to us prior to addressing it in a way that, we really couldn't adequately consider it. If there's something wrong going on, let's address it. Let's do it through a full and open discussion, including getting input from the people in the department, including the commissioners. And not do it with amendments and meetings presented with just mere minutes notice. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Legislator. Any further discussion, or could we go to a roll call vote?
Mr. President, can I?
One last thing, Mr. President.
Let's let Legislator Felder have the floor. Go ahead, Legislator Felder.
The idea that we don't have the right to amend the budget is presented to us. So you presented us for items in there. They're there. So, we just voted in May. To show you the level of hypocrisy here. We just voted in May to to add staff to the Board of Elections. We're told we are creating 6 patronage positions and all this other garbage in the process of making that, in the process of having that discussion. It was vetoed by the county executive. We overrode this veto, took all kinds of flack, had royal dials and sin against us and everything else. And now, the same position we just created, somebody's trying to take them away, but want to keep the same amount of money and the same amount of positions. So this is all a shell game here. And like I said, the reason why I'm not going for this is because I know the underlying political scheme that's going on here, and I refuse to have my vote be used in that effort. There's no way in the world I'm going along with this because I know what's going on. How do you give a huge raise and promotion to somebody who has not been at work all year? How many of you run a business? Legislator Mafucci talked about he was a superintendent. Did you ever do that as a superintendent? This is just ridiculous. You don't reward people who don't come to work. But nobody wants to deal with that. And so, no, I'm voting to override this veto.
Thank you. Legislator Flagler Mitchell, did you have another comment?
No, I yield to it. I'm okay.
So we'll go to a roll call vote.
Yes.
Mr. Clerk. Mr. Brew.
Proudly voting yes.
Mr. Brew votes yes. Mr. Felder.
Yes.
Mr. Felder votes yes. Mr. Flagler Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Flagler Mitchell votes yes. Mr. Alcoffer.
Yes.
Mr. Alcoffer votes yes. Mr. Ansello.
Yes.
Mr. Ansello votes yes. Ms. Barnhart.
No.
Ms. Barnhart votes no. Mr. Baroff.
No.
Mr. Baroff votes no. Mr. Baines.
No.
Mr. Baines votes no. Ms. Boyce.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Boyce votes yes. Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Mr. Colby votes yes. Mr. Delahanty.
Yes.
Mr. Delahanty votes yes. Mrs. DeFlorio.
Yes.
Mr. DeFlorio votes yes. Mr. Dondorfer.
Yes.
Mr. Dondorfer votes yes. Ms. Haspin.
No.
Ms. Haspin votes no. Mr. Hebert.
Yes.
Mr. Hebert votes yes. Mr. Keofat-Lassie.
Yes.
Mr. Keofat-Lassie votes yes. Ms. Lamar.
Yes.
Ms. Lamar votes yes. Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Lee votes yes. Mr. Mafucci.
No.
Mr. Mafucci votes no. Mr. Marinetti.
Yes.
Mr. Marinetti votes yes. Mr. Morelli.
No.
Mr. Morelli votes no. Ms. Roman. Excuse me, Ms. Roman.
No.
Ms. Roman votes no. Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Ms. Smith votes yes. Ms. Taylor.
Yes.
Ms. Taylor votes yes. Mr. Terp.
Yes.
Mr. Terp votes yes. Meeting will be held open for Mr. Wilcox to vote. Mr. Wilt.
Yes.
Mr. Wilt votes yes. Mr. Udelson.
No.
Mr. Udelson votes no. President Carbone.
Yes.
President Carbone votes yes. 20-8, needing a 3/5 majority, the motion is approved.
Thank you, everyone. In accordance with Section C4-4 of the Monroe County, the 2021 Monroe County budget, with such changes that were objected to by the county executive, is hereby approved. By law, the only item we can take up after passage of the budget is the capital budget. We are not in receipt of a timely submitted capital budget from the county executive. Therefore, we cannot transact any other business. There being no unfinished business, Legislator Brew.
Point of order, Mr. President. Legislator Morelli.
Yes, Legislator Morelli.
Mr. President, the other items that were on the agenda for the budget meeting the other night, will those items be taken up at January's meeting? Or should we expect another special meeting?
I think we can expect another special meeting as soon as we're in receipt of the capital budget.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Legislator Brew?
Yes, Mr. President, we stand adjourned until such time the county executive submits his 2021 proposed capital budget, or 6 p.m. Tuesday, January 12th, 2021.
And the meeting will be held open for Mr. Wilcox to cast his votes.
Yes, the meeting will be held open for Mr. Wilcox to cast his